Let's ignore that. Kenny Cunningham, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, lads.
Just very briefly about that Villa game. A defeat like
that... I never
that...
do that in brief. Yeah, you know that.
I know. A defeat like that in the manner of it, where it looks like Pepe Reina has saved a point for them. It's a tough game. The stadium is on fire and everybody's like, this is good. We got a point when we needed it against one of the teams who's gone for Champions League action. To concede in the 92nd minute the way they did with a horrific error from a centre-back who'd actually played quite well in the game, that's the type of thing that kills a team who are fighting against relegation, right?
Yeah, you're right. I think psychologically it does damage Ger. I thought they were fragile all during the game, particularly defensively. Anytime Spurs made a couple of passes and their half the pitch got down the sides of the three centre-halves, they looked to be in trouble. I know Mings wasn't fit, but even still, I thought they looked a bit brittle. Drinkwater in midfield just looks as if his legs, he can't get himself up to speed. They missed a couple of key players. McGinn for me is absolutely crucial. The partnership, him and Jack Grealish, funny enough, earlier in the season, playing as those two advanced number 8s in central midfield was probably their biggest asset. They need to get him back fit quickly and keep Jack Grealish fit. That's the only chance they have. But I'd really worry for them at the moment.
Yeah. So what about Spurs? How good were they?
Decent, but pretty symptomatic from what I've seen from Spurs of late, or certainly since Marino's come in. You can see there's elements of quality within the squad. Jay, you saw the advantage of Son operating as a striker high up the pitch. His ability to drive in behind, use his pace down the sides, which you don't get with Harry Kane, to be honest with you. He probably gives you more options than Kane in that respect, and being able to drop in short, link things up, and then go in behind as well and really stretch teams. But obviously not as good a finisher as Harry Kane. We saw that as well. There's some great chances Tottenham Hotspur got themselves in some great positions. Ali was bursting forward from that number 10 position, which is his best position, getting into the box, getting on the end of things, but just not good enough, not clinical enough in the last third of the pitch. They've got problems in centre midfield, yeah. They haven't got a naturally holding midfield player. He's looking at Dore. Dore is just a bit of a shadow of the player that was there some years ago. Just mobility-wise, he can't get around the pitch. Alderweireld, the greatest player that he has been, just again, he's lost that yard of pace as well. Grealish done him on a couple of occasions. So, yeah, some good stuff there from Spurs. Impressive in some areas of the pitch, but he still needs to do some business in the summer, Marino, for me, in key areas of the pitch.
Yeah, it's interesting looking in kind of the overall context of the weekend, Kenny, where exactly things might fall. We've got the Manchester City situation here, whereby if there is a place that opens up in the race for the top 4 all of a sudden for the Champions League places, it kind of changes the complexion of it entirely, because like Harry Redknapp was saying, for example, last week on TalkSport that Arsenal will qualify or will finish in the top 4, and obviously that seemed like such a ridiculous notion. But then this possibility of there being another Champions League place, it turns this slow bike race for the top 4 into something even more exciting in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a fair point. I don't think a huge amount changes, though, the fact that the 5th place is open up. I don't think the mentality of a number of clubs all of a sudden, Sheffield United, are thinking, there's a real chance for us now. Yeah, it does increase the possibility of maybe the likes of Wolves or a team of that stature maybe grabbing that potentially that 5th Champions League place. I'm still not sure it'll happen. It's all hypothetical, pie in the sky in terms of whether that's going to be the case. But I don't think it'll affect in terms of the mentality of those clubs going forward. Particularly the ones I've mentioned, Sheffield United, Wolves, they'd be kind of fairy tales if they were to make Champions League. But I think they'll just keep grinding out as they have been. So I don't think the dynamic on is going to change greatly in terms of what you're going to see from those clubs between now and the end of the season. Everyone's just got their heads down and trying to put the type of run together that will get them in as high a position as possible.
What's your take on what happens here in the City situation, Kenny? I know you mentioned there it's kind of pie in the sky stuff at the moment, but if you are a Manchester City player without Champions League football for the next 2 seasons, it does change your status at the club, doesn't it? It changes the whole status of yourself as a footballer, that you won't be able to partake in Europe's top competition.
I'm not buying into that. That's the argument the players will be using and their agents will be using. His stature's affected now. My client is desperate. Champions League football, dreamt as a child to playing it. We've got to get out. But look, players do what's good for them at the end of the day. I'm sure we might see now a lot of the comments from Manchester United players. See players the last couple of years, being totally committed to the badge and totally invested in the football club, totally buying into this kind of project. then we'll see maybe over the next few months which of those statements kind of ring true. I'm still not convinced it's going to play out as simple as that. A simple 2-year ban for Manchester City. There will be an appeal process. Generally speaking, experience tells you that that ban will be maybe half to maybe a 1 year. I think that changes the dynamics somewhat. Good to hear Guardiola come out. Well, it seems to be initially saying he's here regardless, hell or high water. He'll be around for the next 2 years. I think that's exactly what the club needed from the manager. So I hope not. Personally, I hope they don't get banned. Because unfortunately, indirectly, the people that really matter, supporters and players, actually who are the most affected by the ban. So I hope that doesn't transpire. But yeah, they've obviously put themselves in a very difficult position. But they're a powerful body, Manchester City, and even if CAS was to rule against them, I don't think they'll let it lie there. I think they'll be appealing even to even challenging European law in terms of the rights of UEFA to impose these sanctions, and even financial fair play itself might be up to scrutiny, so there's a long way to go.
There's definitely a long way to go. I just wanted briefly to talk about Steven Gerrard. It's obviously interviewed after Rangers win yesterday in the Scottish Premier League, and he says he's very, very interested in what's happening for obvious reasons. Now, he didn't go into those obvious reasons, but everybody is like assuming that he thinks there's some way that maybe Manchester City might be penalised by losing the Premier League titles that they've won under this regime. What do you think of that prospect, and what would it mean for Liverpool and for Manchester United?
Well, I suppose what it means is potentially Liverpool will be crowned champions, but it's not easy for me to say. Obviously, I'm not connected, but it's not the way I'd want to win a league title in that respect. And I think, no, for me, I've probably said it before. For me, I don't think in terms of looking back like that retrospectively, Liverpool players had their opportunity over the course of the season to come out on top of Manchester City. They didn't. Now, I understand the argument that says, well, Manchester City shouldn't have had players, they were paying them, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I understand that argument. There's rules there in place. But ultimately, from a sporting spectacle as a contest, they went up against Manchester City over the course of the season, and they came out second best. So for me, that shouldn't change, regardless of what the outcome of this investigation by UEFA and the Court of Arbitration. For me, there shouldn't be kind of retrospective kind of justice dealt to Manchester City. For me, they won the league fairly and squarely on the football pitch, kind of man-to-man over the course of the season. That shouldn't change.
Yeah, it's a bit funny Steven Gerrard's even like floating this balloon, isn't it?
No, I can understand. I can understand. There's an argument there, Ger. It's a logical argument of, well, they've broken the rules, they've overinflated the sponsorship deals, which enabled them to pay more money to players. They've hidden payments to players and image rights, giving themselves an unfair advantage. So, from purely financial terms, yeah, I can understand that argument if it is proved to be true. I think it probably is true. Don't get me wrong; it's hardly a massive surprise, is it? A big surprise, huge error on, is it, in terms of what's actually come out here. But for me, it's a big, massive step then in terms of, let's look back in terms of what they've won, every trophy they've won during that period of time. Let's take it off and let's hand them to the next in line. That becomes almost farcical to me. I think in a sporting context, they actually earned those trophies. The players deserve them, and that should remain intact.
Do you not think for Liverpool's open top bus tour this year, they could have like Brendan Rodgers and Steven Gerrard in another bus behind this year's squad, just celebrating the 2014 Premier League title?
Well, maybe if that keeps Steven Gerrard happy, maybe so. Just maybe getting towed along in a little hiace behind the main open top bus if that's what they want. But like I said, that's a pretty hollow feeling. I know we're joking about it, but that's a pretty hollow feeling. Isn't it? So yeah, I don't like to hear that kind of conversation, to be honest with you. But yeah, it certainly kind of warrants potential. It'd be interesting to see how it pans out. But I'd be very surprised if we go into next season with the Court of Arbitration upholding UEFA's decision and Manchester City banned for 2 years. I think there's a long way to go in this process.
The other game yesterday, Arsenal against Newcastle United, Kenny. From an Irish perspective, obviously the Kieran Clark injury news is probably the most eyebrow-raising. Got injured twice in the game. Looked pretty bad. How does that impact Mick McCarthy's thinking for next month?
Probably not greatly. In all honesty, I think Kieran certainly would have come into contention. I think Mick would be sticking with an orthodox kind of back four. I think if you had been arguing 3 centre half, certainly Kieran would have pushing strongly for a starting place. But I think Shane Duffy and John Egan are starting to for the game in Slovakia. So I don't think that'll change. It would have been great to have the option of Kieran. He's a good player. I like Kieran. He's comfortable on the ball. A kind of naturally left-footed player in terms of the balance of the team in that area of the pitch. So, yeah, hopefully he gets back as soon as possible. To blow for him, he's had his injury problems. But in all honesty, I don't think it'll impact on us too much, certainly in the foreseeable future.
I don't know, do you want to talk about Arsenal and how great they looked in the 90th minute? That was like the best final 5 minutes I've seen the team play football all season on.
Well, like, I mean, if you've got players like Alexandre Lacazette and Mesut Ozil scoring goals, Kenny, it surely can't be a bad thing. You've obviously got
36 uninterrupted passes. That was like watching Liverpool of the 1980s.
It was like, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what.
Or Arsenal in the League Cup game.
In the Carling Cup era specifically, like you've obviously got more sustainable aspects of this squad, like Bukayo Saka at left back turning into what looks like an unbelievable talent for Arsenal, and then you have these glimmers like Lacazette and Mesut Ozil. Is it something that perhaps can lead to future success down the line this season? Can they go all the way in the Europa League potentially? Like, I really still don't buy the idea that Champions League qualification via the Premier League is going to happen for them, because they do have a couple of very, very tricky fixtures.
No, but they're heading in the right direction, Alan. That's the most important thing. There has been improvement there for me under Arteta. You saw it very quickly in terms of just the basic organisation of the team, in terms of the tactical setup of the team. They clearly they're better drilled, but they're certainly taken on board the messages from the manager. There's kind of clear thinking in terms of how he wants them to play, the intensity they play at these days, the way they hunt around the pitch. You get physically aggressive with people. There's clearly been a massive upturn in that respect. Some of the younger players there clearly bought in. So you've mentioned there Martinelli as well, didn't play yesterday. A huge talent as well. So they're heading in the right direction. I can't see Champions League this year, apart from obviously through the route of Europa, because I think you can get on a roll. It does happen, lads. You can get on a roll second half of the season, confidence, keep your key players fit. And that's a competition you can tiptoe your way through. Manchester United did a couple of years ago without playing like scintillating football, and got themselves a European trophy and Champions League qualification. So it is possible for Arsenal. There's still a lot to play for. But the important thing is they're heading in the right direction. They look as if they got the right man in place, strong character, good coach, good organiser. And that's fundamentally what they've been crying out for some time.
Arsenal's win puts them up to 10th. They're just behind Manchester United in the table. Obviously, Man United are playing tonight at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea. This is a very, very big game if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to inject some confidence into his entire era at Manchester United. They need to be able to at least credibly challenge for the top four, and there's no way they're going to be able to. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to come back if they lose tonight. So how do Manchester United approach an away game against Chelsea knowing so much is on the line?
Well, I suppose if you're talking about, I suppose the psychological aspect and the tactical aspect of the game, that comes to the manager, how he sees it. I actually think some of the big games during his tenure there, Ger, I'm thinking back when he first came into the football club, I think tactically he's got a spot on, and probably the Manchester City game earlier this season at the Etihad was the greatest example of that. I thought it was brilliant in terms of the tactical setup of the team on that particular occasion. Big game, huge pressure on the players. I thought he got absolutely spot on. Solskjaer, didn't go toe-to-toe with Manchester United, invited them on, played a counter-attacking game, made no apologies for it. It was the right tactic on the night. They broke at Manchester United at pace, opened them up, and were deserved the winners. So that was a brilliant night from Manchester United and Solskjaer in particular. So he kind of needs one of those nights in terms of how he sees the game going. They're never going to dominate possession, although with Fernandes now on the team, looking forward to seeing him play up close, seeing how good he is, because they certainly need definitely need somebody to centre midfield, a bit more creative edge, who can see a pass, who can get beyond the ball into the box and contribute with goals. So really looking forward to see him play up close. But it is a big game for Solskjaer. We've been saying that for some time, lads, haven't we? It's a big game for Solskjaer. He doesn't win this one. Seems as if we've been repeating ourselves for the past 3 or 4 months. Look, he's safe till the end of the season. That's true. But certainly I think what happens between now and the end of the season will affect the thinking of Ed Woodward going forward. And I think it's simple as this. If he loses the faith and the support of the Manchester United faithful between now and the end of the season, and they make kind of vocal their frustration, I think that's probably the end of them.
Yeah. All right, Kenny, good stuff. We'll let you go. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
Kenny Cunningham there giving us his thoughts on that. It's the definition of a 6-pointer tonight for Manchester United. If they win, they're 3 points behind. If they lose, they're 9 points behind fourth. And obviously, fourth is very important at the moment. It might be fifth, but as people keep talking about, this appeal to cast might end up being what means top four is top four this year, and we'll see what happens. Right, Armand McCarthy's Ireland squad capable of playing with a back three. Here's Gary Breen.